welcome back to Allergy-licious, where we bring you the most delicious vegan, gluten-free, and allergy-friendly treats. On today's vlog, we are going to be doing these amazing coconut cloud bars. You might also recognize them by the name of magic bars, which could have been something your grandmother or mother used to make growing up. I don't really remember growing up with these. My mom was kind of a pie and cake making person, but I did have these as I became older, started going to parties and gatherings, and so I wanted to share those with you today because they are absolutely amazing. Now, you have this little cookbook that you see in front of me. Years and years ago, when I was first going through all my kind of self-help when I found out my son had food allergies, I decided to take some of our family's best recipes and condense them, recreate the recipes, and make them allergy-friendly. So the very first ebook that I came out with was called Sweet Cheats, because they are sweet and they're cheating the system. You would never know that they were allergy-friendly. And so what I did is, you'll see in here, these are my coconut cloud bars. Don't laugh at the picture, this is like 8 years ago, and so thankfully there's room for progress and change. But I'm going to be sharing this recipe with you today. This cookbook is also available on blurb.com. I can leave that little link in the profile down below so you can grab it. But it's about 50 allergy-friendly recipes. But I've changed this one up just a little bit. And so as we go, I'll tell you what changes I made and how this is even more allergy-friendly now. So the first thing that we are going to use for this recipe is graham crackers. I've already, chopped mine up to little pieces, and what I like to do is I put them in this little bag and just roll them over with a rolling pin. It makes it a whole lot easier and less clean out than if you're going to use it in a food processor, but feel free to use whichever way. I just like this because if I have extra, I can just throw it back in the pantry, no mess, no fuss, and that's even better, right? So what we're going to do is use your gluten-free and vegan graham cracker crumbs. And it's okay if they're not all teeny tiny. There are some companies that you can already pre-buy just the crumbs themselves. And so I've done that before, and the only thing I don't like, it's almost so fine that it becomes more like a flour consistency. And so I like a little bit more of that texture. We're going to add in our vegan butter. This is also soy-free, it's gluten-free, and it's dairy-free, and it's already melted, and that all gets added into here. And then we're just gonna mix this up together and put it in the pan. Okay, so as we're mixing this, we just wanna make sure that every little bit of this gets a little bit of that butter, because that's what we're gonna use to make that nice crumbly base, but we need that butter to be able to stick it all together. So I like using the vegan butter with this because I love that buttery taste that it gives you with the graham crackers. And so that's what I've used. And it's all mixed up in here now. And you can see that all the little pieces are already covered and coated, and that's exactly what we want. So we are just gonna go ahead and put this into the pan. I've already foiled the pan. Again, it just makes it super easy for cleanup. It cooks it even better, I think. So I like to use just a glass pan and then go ahead and use the tin foil on top of it. I wouldn't do parchment paper though, because you want it to cook a little bit better, and I think that the tin conducts the heat a little bit better than the parchment paper would. And so you are just gonna go ahead and pat this down, making this little crumb base. Just make sure you get all the sides, and that is our first layer. Now, in a typical recipe for magic bars, it would be layered next with pecans or some type of nut. And since we obviously don't do nuts in our house because of our food allergies, what I like to use is gluten-free pretzels. And I just do the same thing, throw them in a bag and chop them up that way. But it adds a little bit of that saltiness that you would get from your nuts if you use that instead. It adds that extra crunch, and it just complements the next couple steps when we have chocolate and like a condensed cream milk on top of it. And so it just balances it out. So there's sweet, there's salty, and there's buttery, and it's just really good. So this just get sprinkled on top as well. One pan, super easy recipe. You can whip this batch up in no time, and that really comes in handy because this will also get eaten in no time. So having an easy dessert to make, especially when your kids come home or you want to do something special for them, this is a great resource to have for them. Okay, next we have chocolate chips. This is, for today's recipe, I'm using dark chocolate chips. And again, they're top 8 free, they're allergy friendly, they're vegan and gluten free, and they're yummy on their own, but they melt down perfectly in this recipe, and they're just absolutely delicious. So we're just gonna sprinkle those across. And there you go, and if you see empty spots there, just move them around, fill them out a little bit. Even though the chocolate's gonna melt, you just want to make sure that you're going to have every square that you cut with a little bit of chocolate on there. Next, we have coconut. So I like to use the larger coconut chips. You don't have to get them pre-flavored. I just get unsweetened because this dessert will be sweet enough on its own. If you do have a coconut allergy, you can completely omit this and maybe top it up with some vegan marshmallows instead. That would be delicious as well. But just start thinking outside of the box, just like we did with the pretzels. What is it that we're trying to add? We're trying to add a little bit of texture change and a little bit of contrast to what we already have on here. This is not necessarily sweet because we get unsweetened, but it does add some chewiness to it. So maybe you add in, like I said, the marshmallows, or maybe you want to add in some, maybe some dried fruit pieces, something like that, just to add some extra flavor and intrigue to the dessert. But we are going to stick with more of a traditional magic bar and go ahead and add this across as well. And again, just cover up the pieces. And depending on the size of pan you use, I have used the 8x8 before. I feel like those pieces are almost too big and you don't get enough for it. A 9x13 can sometimes feel a little bit too big and the pieces are really thin, and so if you use that, you just have to watch your cooking time. But this is about a 7x12 inch pan, and so that's typically what I stick with. Okay, doesn't that look already yummy? The last thing that we have on here, and this is one of the changes that I made to the recipe, is that we are going to use this sweetened condensed coconut milk. Now again, if you have a coconut allergy, you don't have to use this. Before, if you would look at the Sweet Cheats cookbook, I've done this with a blending of tofu and agave. And you can blend that up and use that on top. It helps sweeten everything up. It helps keep everything nice and together, and it kind of firms up and keeps them into the squares. But now that there's products like this where you can get the sweetened condensed milk, but it's made from coconut milk instead, I mean, you definitely want to use this if you have the option to. Again, it's vegan, it's gluten-free, there's no nuts in it other than the coconut, and so this is what we like to use for this recipe. And guys, this stuff is amazing. I have a recipe on the blog that is for a coffee granita, which for all you coffee lovers out there, basically it's frozen coffee that you continue to go in and chop while it's in the freezer, and then you serve it up that way. What I love about that is that you just drizzle a little bit of this condensed coconut milk on top, and it's the most luscious, summer happy, I mean, oh my gosh, it's so good and absolutely amazing. I'm half tempted to leave some of this in here so I can just lick it up after because it's really, really that good. Okay, so I'm just going to carefully spread this out. We don't want to move too many of these pieces around. We want to keep them where we've already had them sit. If you're pouring from the can, it's a whole lot easier, but I just wanted to show you what it looked like in all its creamy lusciousness. All right, that looks about ready. Even if we have a little bit of movement, we're okay. It's all going to cook down together, go in one place when we're done. So we want to make sure we've got some of these edges covered because there's nothing like those boring edges that sometimes you get that never have enough sauce or cream or chocolate in them. So we want to make sure we show some love to the corners as well. That looks delicious. All right, all we do now is bake this in the oven. We're gonna cook it at 350 degrees for 30 minutes, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so we are back. Our dessert is finished. It's all cut and ready to go. And because I love finding other taste testers, I was able to pull Kaden and her friend Ella. They just got home from school. And so guys, this is up for you. So, all right, come grab a treat.
You eat it?
Yep. Oh, yep. Grab it. Take a bite.
Really good.
You like those? We got 2 thumbs up, and I already love this dessert. So again, these are our magic bars. They're absolutely magical. They're vegan, gluten-free, nut-free, easy to make, and so you guys need to add this to your next get-together. So until next time, here's to more sweet treats and vegan eats.